Hi, everyone. Welcome to Turning Point. I'm your host, Blaine Birch, co-founder and CEO at Dryrun. And joining me today, I'm really excited to have Adam Rosen from the email outreach company and also a whole bunch of other things that you've done in the past. So I'm really excited to have you on the show because I know there's you've done a lot of cool things.
I appreciate it, Blaine. I'm excited to be here. It's great to finally get to meet you in person after listening to your podcast. And I appreciate all the great work that you are doing for the entrepreneurship community. So I'm excited to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. And before we got on actually recording the show, I was mentioning that this is just my selfish way to talk with other entrepreneurs and share info and share war stories and then just sort of record it at the same time. So it's I always love having entrepreneurs on the show. I'm sure you're like me. You find another entrepreneur in a crowd and you can stand there and talk for hours.
Absolutely. Well, I feel like the entrepreneur world, it can be a lonely path. So when you find others that have been through it before, it just makes it easy to relate with them and share kind of the war stories that you've been through. So yeah, anytime I meet an entrepreneur, I feel like we could just go on and on and on.
Yeah, absolutely. I talked with a new entrepreneur yesterday, and the one thing I sort of reassured her because she's in technology, really cool idea, and she's just like, it's hard, it's slow, it's hard to get moving. And I said, you know what? No matter what you see from the outside, every business has challenges. You just don't get to see them. And rest assured, it's a lot of times is the people that hang in the longest, right?
Well, yeah, Blaine, that's actually one of my favorite points in that too. And one of my biggest frustrations with the entrepreneurship world, which I started to share with you, is I feel like it's over glamorized, where we always want to say how great everything, it's all peaches and roses and it's all amazing. Where when you hear one startup talking to another startup and really just one entrepreneur talking to another entrepreneur, we have that insecurity where we don't want to share what's really going on. So you're like, hey, how are you doing? Oh, everything's great, trending in the right direction. How's everything going with you? Oh, really good, trending in the right direction. Meanwhile, you look behind you and your house is burning down. Like, how do we have more real conversations where we can actually share the real stuff that's going on with our business? Because if we do that, then we can allow not just ourselves to grow, but other entrepreneurs that might be a few years behind us or might be a few years ahead of us to share their experiences too. So I wish that we would have more of those real and raw conversations.
Yeah, those challenges that we all face, it's amazing that when you're talking with other entrepreneurs and you start sharing some of the struggles, that's when you start getting, like you get those shortcuts. It's like, hey, I did that. I had trouble with this. I experienced that. And I'm such a major believer in that. And but I want to dive in and see, like, you're doing some really cool stuff now. That's how we kind of got connected. But I wanted to kind of dive back into your background and what got you started as an entrepreneur.
So I never actually held a real 9-to-5 job. So right out of college, I did a 1-year MBA program. I went to school just outside of Boston.
Okay.
I basically helped start an entrepreneur program my senior year of college. That led me into continue to run that program, do a 1-year MBA. And then 3 weeks before I graduated, me and my two co-founders at the time decided to forego other opportunities and jump into what ended up being our first business.
Nice.
And our first business we did for 5 years. 4 years, we had a tech platform behind it. The first year was basically like an R&D project building out that concept. And we had a platform of about 100,000 student organizations at colleges, mainly in the US.
Nice.
And then we would work with employers like Bank of America, Amazon, AT&T, lots of large employers that wanted to recruit students through their student organizations, as well as to get data on those students through surveying mechanisms through our platform.
Yeah.
So we did that for about 5 years. And then we were acquired back in 2019.
That's terrific. And I know how hard it is to get, man, like your first time out of the gate. That's impressive because you have to learn so much on the fly, and to be able to get to that point where you got acquired, that's like big congrats to you. That's because same thing, like you just said, like, we did this for 5 years and it all worked, but 5 years, there's a lot of challenges in those 5 years, right?
Oh yeah. And when I say acquire too, I always like to make sure that I say this because and yes, I technically right now am in Hawaii, and I did move to Hawaii actually after we were in the process of selling the company.
Yeah.
But people assume when I say acquire that I'm in Hawaii on the beach, sipping a Mai Tai, retired at, 27 years old or however old I was at the time. That was not the case. It was an acquisition where we took it as far as we possibly could. We wanted to make sure that the company could live on past us and continue to grow. Our
Yeah.
students could continue to leverage the platform. Our companies, our clients could continue to leverage it. Our investors could get as much money back as possible. So it was
Yeah.
not like a big, fancy, glamorous exit. It was 5 years filled with a million different failures, a million, well, some ups and a lot more downs. But
Yeah.
it's the reason why everything that I've done post that company, I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. My business partner and I are doing it the way we're doing it,
Yeah.
because of all those failures and lessons that we learned.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The learnings are like the lessons learned are like, because I've had the same thing in acquisitions. Like, no, I'm not rich off of that, right? Like, you know, and now I'm into something, you know, Dryrun here. It's hard, but it's I always look at like it's like one step back, two steps forward, one step back, two steps forward, and every once in a while it's three steps back, two steps forward, you know, and it's just every day. And you know, one of the biggest struggles I think I have at times, and I know other entrepreneurs that maybe don't struggle with as much as I do at times, but I don't stop to celebrate those wins. Like I just, it's like we could have a small win, big win, whatever, and I'm already climbing up the next hill. That's how I'm wired. I just go, go, go. And I'm trying to slow down a bit and go like, hey, you have to celebrate those little wins and cheer on the team when you got those little wins. And it's always that big picture, the big goal in mind for me. It's hard for me to do that.
Well, I think they always say the character traits that we have that are our best character traits that can lead to maybe our greatest strengths and our greatest growth can also lead to our greatest weaknesses too, and our greatest shortcomings. And I feel the same way a lot too, where I would never like stop and, as they say, smell the roses. I would never appreciate the wins. I would always, if I got a win, well, you know what? It actually wasn't big enough. I want another win and another win and another win.
Yeah.
And that was always a fear of mine, is like, is it ever going to be good enough? Is it ever going to be enough? And I do think that's something where the sooner we can figure that out and appreciate the small wins and be grateful for where we are and grateful for the small successes and really just grateful for the process, I think the better off we'll all be.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I remember like, and I always have these goals in mind, that next goal. And then in the back of my mind, I'm like, hey, I remember when I had this goal. Oh, wow, man, we must have passed that a year ago. Like it just, you didn't even notice. And it's such a battle. And I know people on the outside, they don't get to see that, but it's just such a daily battle. And it doesn't matter really in a way how big the business is. It's just another zero, another 2 zeros, another 3 zeros, but it's just the challenges that someone's going to be facing. Right. And so what you mentioned, like, first of all, again, like you guys built a business, you were still around in 5 years, which I know is probably, it isn't a minority from any business, but for a startup and sort of in a tech space, in that being around for 5 years and actually being able to sell it and have that continue on for any length of time is a big feat, because I don't know what the numbers would be. Probably 20%, maybe even 10% are the only ones that actually get to that point. What were some of the challenges that you guys faced that you sort of, like you said, you've learned some of those lessons? What were some of the things that you really had to deal with at that time?
Yeah, I mean, a ton of things come to mind. I'll like mention just a few highlights that I'll hone in on one, because really one of my biggest learnings that we're focused in on, I'll hone in on that point. But I mean, it was everything from creating good product to managing a good team to hiring good people to making sure that our product was sticky and making sure that our customers were happy, and customer retention and renewals and upselling and every little bit that could go into the business, we had challenges with. But the biggest, most tangible learning, whenever I talk to startups, and frankly, with this email business that we started, we've been so slow in building it because with my last company, with our tech company, we never had true product market fit. And my belief is, until a company has product market fit, you're really just building off of a layer of like feathers. You know, it's not built off of a solid foundation. So it's how quickly can you get to product market fit? And the way I define product market fit is not just someone buying from you again and again, but also not just buying from you, once, but buying from you again and again, and then also wanting to give you more money because you're providing more value.
Yeah.
With my tech startup, the reason why we weren't acquired for a ton of money and the reason why I wasn't on a beach retired with a Mai Tai was because our retention numbers were much lower than they needed to be, especially for a SaaS platform.
Hmm. Yeah.
So now with everything we do, we've been so methodical in making sure that the product drags us versus us trying to drag the product, where
Yeah.
customers are saying, hey, this is awesome. We want to keep giving you money. And man, we want to give you more and more money because you're providing such value for us.
Yeah, I think the word that you mentioned was that the customers are sort of dragging you over to them. And that's the same thing that we've talked about in our business all the time, is when we start to feel the pull. And there's when we first launched Dryrun, like I launched Dryrun, we launched it like totally bootstrapped, just a couple of us, let's get this going. And then we're kind of working on over here. And then I still remember saying to my co-founder, I'm like, it's like we're working so hard over here, and then people come in the back door. You're like, where did those come from? What's going on? And then, you start to feel this pull from an area, like for us, that like we thought we were so solid, like we released a small business tool. That's what we thought we had built. And then we start getting pulled and pulled and pulled, and we're like, whoa, wait a minute. Turns out we're not a small business tool. It turns out we're a financial professional tool. We didn't know we built that. CPA, CFO start going, yeah, we need that. Oh, okay. But what I think the smart thing we did is even though we didn't really go out and find that ourselves, as soon as we started to feel the pull, we recognized it, and we didn't push against it, right? We said, go that way, go that way, go that way, right?
So I'm curious on that. So how did you, so you had one concept of what your product was, and then customers told you that there was a new concept of the product that you should really focus in on. But how did you figure out that, hey, A was not the right fit, but B was the right product? Like what were you doing? Who were you having conversations with that made you make that decision to pivot?
Yeah, well, I guess like first off, after we rolled out, and it was just like, again, it was my co-founder and I basically rolled this product out almost as just a product. Like it wasn't really even almost a business at that point. And then Intuit came along and said, hey, we think you're a top 10 new app. And also we're down in San Jose in this $100,000 app showdown and stuff. And still thinking we're probably a business product. But then we started to get, some of those bookkeepers and accountants started sort of talking with us. And so I started thinking, geez, maybe there's something there. Because at the start, we thought pros would laugh at us. I honestly thought that. I remember saying that. I'm like, accountants will laugh at us, but I'm a business owner. I know how important this is. Turns out they know how important it is too. The big one for us was AICPA, the world's largest CPA organization, reached out to us and said, we want you in our accelerator. Like, holy cow. These guys are the CPAs. These are the account. Okay, we're in, let's do it. Right. And that was a really big shift for us, because suddenly it just kind of lifted this curtain. We got to talk with all of these experts, these advisors, and understand the challenges of the profession and all these things, and went, yeah, you're right. That's where we have to go. And so that's actually after that experience is when we did our first round of fundraising, just a small round, expanded the team, did that full pivot over to go, we're going up market. And since that point, not just moving to the pros, we've continued to move more up market again, because we keep feeling this different pull, and you start realizing where you fit. And so it felt like we had that all of a sudden, we had that 80% product market fit. And now it's like, you're going, oh, okay, I think this is working right there. This is the path we have to take. This is how we evolve the product. It's such a fundamental difference when you can look and have that clarity of go there and we're building this. Is such a massive shift for an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah. And you only knew that because you were talking to buyers. You were having those conversations, where I've seen startups that they spend so much time in the product building phase, and they don't spend enough time, not just talking to customers, but more importantly, even asking for money. Because one of the problems someone asked me the other day, like, how much market research should I do? And I said, you could do a little bit ahead of time, of course. Like, you want to have an idea if this concept even makes sense. Should it be in the world? Who else is doing this? Of course, you need to have an understanding of that. But the best market research is talking to your buyers. But it's not just saying, what do you think about this concept? Because most people are going to say, hey, it's a good idea. Like, good luck, because they think you want to hear that. But how you know if they like that idea or not? It's, do you want to take out your pocketbook? Do you want to take out your credit card? Are you willing to buy this? And if not, what would you be willing to pay for? And how much would you be willing to pay for that?
Yeah. And one of the experiences we had, because we've changed pricing so much, especially as we started to pivot over, And, you know, talking with pricing experts since then. In fact, there is a turning point with, his name escapes me, pricing expert. I'll find it after our call here. A fascinating talk with him on pricing. But as we start to look at pricing, we start to realize as we move up market, we're moving to the pro space. The worst thing we can do is underprice, because we're going to look like we're not a pro product. And so you actually are adding friction. And so we got to the point where it's like, we have to be higher priced than everybody down here because we don't compete there. We have to compete up here. And the most amazing thing is finding we're not getting pushback on our pricing. Even today, we're like, I don't think we're high enough. Like we just, until we start getting some serious pushback, they're paying. We're like, I don't know if we're there yet.
Yeah, pricing is like you learn it as you go. There's no perfect formula for what the pricing should be. And a lot of it is you're on a sales call and you're feeling it out and you're trying new things. And I've found times I'm like, oh my God, we are charging so undervalue. And that can be a good thing, don't get me wrong, because maybe it's easy for people to buy. But on the flip side, to your point, that can create more friction because they're like, wait, why are they so cheap? Are they not that good of an offering? Are they not that good of a product? What's going on with them? So there is that double side, that double side of it where you want to be underpriced sometimes, but the other side is you don't want to come across a cheap product.
Yeah. And I think like what I've heard a few times is, and it sort of resonates in my head, is you're either the cheapest or the more expensive. If you're in the middle, you confuse people.
Right.
And I just looked and went, well, where we're going, we're a premium product. We have to be on the top end because that's what sort of fits our model. So you're right. Like there is a model where it's, you know, being the lowest price is a great opportunity, or being the highest price, great opportunity. In the middle is trickier. And, but it is critical. And I look back to like how much our pricing has changed since the day we launched. And it's quite funny. Like, you're just like, we didn't know what to price it at. And you're double again. And also like, oh, man, now we're into the ballpark, right?
Yeah, and the first person you charge to, you're like, oh man, this feels like a lot of money I'm charging them. I don't know if this feels like a lot. And then you look down the road, you're like, man, I was charging nothing for those early customers. But that's the value. If you're an early customer, the challenge is there's going to be roadblocks, there's going to be bumps in the road, there's going to be mistakes that happen because they're learning their product or their offering as you go. But the flip side, you're probably going to get the best price possible. And a lot of times you get kind of grandfathered into that price too. So there's a pro and con to it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, so and what were some of the other challenges? Like, you know, you talked about, you know, selling into institutions. Like we've been fortunate. We're selling basically direct to business, even though we're in the more of the pro space, direct to business, but selling into institutions like that, sounds like a big undertaking.
Well, yeah, well, when we started, we thought that would be a good route. It was going into colleges and universities and saying, hey, let's get all of your 100 or 1,000 student organization on the platform. We thought that was the avenue, but I remember this was very early on. I had a conversation with a big time Ivy League school, and this was the dean of their engineering department, for example. And I remember that conversation with her, and she basically said, I can see why our student clubs would love this. I can see why they would get a ton of value from this, but I do not want them to do this. So basically, goodbye, click. And I was like, okay, so that's going to be the route if we try to go through institutions. So on the student side, it was all direct to these student organizations. And basically what we did is the biggest problem that these student organizations had was they needed money. The reason why is because they travel to conferences. They'll go to like, you know, Africa to clean the drinking water. They're building bridges in India. Like they're doing all these amazing things, but they need money to do it. So they're always asking corporations for sponsorship. So our business model would, we would sponsor them and their club members to sign up for our platform. So basically pay for them to sign up. Corporations, that's who we would sell to. Those are our clients, Bank of America's of the world, the Amazons of the world, the AT&Ts of the world. They would pay a subscription fee to be able to recruit those students, as well as to do surveys to those students as well. So we went direct to the students. So we didn't have to deal with the bureaucracy and the red tape. And then on the corporation side, those were our clients.
Okay. No, that makes sense. That clarifies a lot. And that makes it a lot easier because there's and that's the trick, is figuring out where's the value, like what's the value prop to both sides and how do you match them together. And if you don't have it, you can have a great story. They're not going to buy in. Right.
Exactly. And, you know, we built a two-sided marketplace, which we always heard in the beginning was one of, if not the most difficult businesses to build, because you need to get the user side, you need to get the buy side and the sell side both on there. And you have to do it in a really strategic way where both parties are getting enough of what they want. And we definitely learned that the hard way. It was certainly a challenge. And I think there was, we had a lot of problems in making the product sticky and allowing it to scale with us. But it was a hell of a learning. And I definitely am not super interested in building another two-sided marketplace in the near future.
Yeah, for sure. So you exit after five years there. Where did you go from there? What was the next sort of challenge? Because you said you took all these learnings and started to move on to the next thing, right?
Yeah. So after that, I did mainly consulting for the company that acquired us, as well as for some other startups. So that's how I kind of got into advising and working with startups. So that was back in 2019. So I did that for about a year. And then I came back to New York from Hawaii for a friend's wedding. And then my business partner, who before we started the company together, he was involved in land development. So he would buy land, he would subdivide that land. His father bought a big project in upstate New York, and his dad is basically retired. He tried working with a sales firm to sell that property. And I've always wanted to learn real estate. I never got involved with it, but I always thought it was a valuable skill that I think everyone should learn. So his dad said, "Hey, would you be open to just moving upstate and leading this whole project?" And I said, "All right, screw it, whatever. I guess I'll go to upstate New York." So I did that, sold out the whole property in about 6 to 8 months. Then we bought another property in Vermont and did that for about a year and a half total from start to finish. And then it was about a year ago when I had a conversation with one of the tech startups that I've been advising. And he said, "Hey, can you talk to my head of sales? She's struggling to get meetings on the calendar." I had a conversation with her. I found out what she was doing from a cold email standpoint. I said to their founder, I said, "Hey, Pete, I can help you out with this." He said, "Sure, build something and do it for me." I called my co-founder. I said, "Hey, let's see if we can get some meetings for the startup and build out some type of business for him." We did it for him. It went well, and we started slowly adding more customers. And that's kind of how this email business was born, all just out of a side hustle and just saying, "Hey, I think we can solve this problem for you."
Yeah, and that's so often that seems like the most effective way is start super low tech and learn the value, learn the ropes, offer that value, and then in the end, it's just like now we're just automating the process we know really well, rather than trying to build the process and going, "Oh man, we built this whole thing and we got some fundamental gaps in it," right?
Well, that was the big thing. So me and my business partner, Pranav, we were talking in the early days, and it's like, "Oh man, I don't want to manage these inboxes, reply to these emails, build these templates." But we're like, we have to just be disciplined over the next 3 to 6 months to like feel every groove in the process. Because if we can feel every groove in the process, then we can build the systems out so that we no longer are involved with that.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we did. And now we have a great team with people all over the world where we have a pretty darn good system right now that's able to handle this for our customers. And now we're starting to grow, and now we see some big scale potential. But it's only because the first 3 to 6 months, it was miserable, where literally I was in these inboxes, which I haven't done since like my early days of my tech startup, responding to these every little email and templatizing everything and all that, not that exciting stuff. But we wanted to feel every groups that we could build out the systems that could be repeatable.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've probably read maybe several times the lean startup and it's such a, like that sort of philosophy. I think it's so critical for startups. It's a lot of the systems that are kind of the same way, but in the way, it's so critical for startups to be disciplined enough to go like, yeah, it's do it the low tech, do it that minimum viable product sort of thing, test it out, learn it before you build it, because it's your chances of success if you just dive in and grow or build is not great.
Man, one of my best friends, he's about to leave now this company, but he's been working for a company for a little while. And these are guys, the founders of the company that had a good exit with a larger company. They were early team members, had a good exit with them, but they've been building out this product for 2 years. You know how many customers they have? Zilch, nada, zero. And they've just been building and building and building, and their runway is just shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And it's because they're not spending any of the time and any of the money. Like, stop building and start talking to your customers, because you have all these amazing features. Sure, they sound good for you, like it's good for your ego. Like, this is super cool. This feature is amazing. It's so amazing. It's so cool. But do the customers really care about it? Are they worth pay? Are they going to pay for it? Are they even going to use it? I can't tell you how many features we had in our tech startup that I was so excited about. We were so excited about, and the customers are like, cool, I ain't going to use that. It doesn't matter to me. So like, let's slow down on the building and spend more time, like you, to your point, building an MVP and seeing, are people even using it? And how are they using it?
Yeah. And we've been guilty of the same thing. Like, we started very much in that lean startup and prototype and all this kind of stuff. And then, and then I think at some point we started to, believe our own hype or whatever. And I know I'm sure we've built things that are not even in the product anymore. It probably took forever to build it and then went, oh, that. So we really, really value talking with customers every single day, every single week. And the entire team is contributing information back. And we're always telling the team, like, look, tell us what they ask for, because there's value there. But most importantly, if they ask for something, find out what is the problem they're trying to solve. It's not just what the answer is. What's the problem they're trying to solve? Because it's our job to come up with a much more friction-free, easy way to solve the problem. Because they're not supposed to be designing the product for us. We have to solve their problem. And it's gathering all of that feedback and getting enough of it that you can start to go, here's the common threads. Here's some issues that keep coming up.
Exactly. And how do you make it as simple as possible? Because what are the tools that we all love? You mentioned Slack early. I love Slack.
Yep.
Slack is as simple of a tool as there can possibly be. Like, we need simplicity because we have more distractions than ever.
Yeah.
Even with my tech startup, the last product we had, which is probably our best product, where if we started with that product, we might have had a much better exit. It was the most simple product in the world, especially compared to what we used to have. Like, in the beginning, it was like way more high tech, way fancier, probably a lot cooler. Like, if you were just to do like a TED talk about it, it would be a lot more of an interesting product. Like, wow, this is so cool, but it didn't work as well as it needed to. Where the last product was simple and it worked. Are people going to pay tons and tons of money for it? No, but is it a utility? Is it a valuable tool that many more people could get value from? Absolutely. And simplicity is always my favorite word in entrepreneurship. Is how do you make things simple for ourselves, for our team, for our customers?
Yeah, and it's an ongoing debate and challenge with us, because as we move up market, we're serving CFOs and CPAs, and they want power, but it has to be easy. It has to be simple. So it's always this: keep it simple, keep it simple, keep it simple. But if you need to take that step in, the power's there. It's just if this is the area where you really need some power, you can start to go down and pull that thread, and it's going to be there. But the base structure should be simple. So, and sometimes it's funny because we'll see some of the financial professionals sometimes will struggle the most to sort of get going because they make it harder than it is. And we always say, it's like, look, we do have some business owners that occasionally come in here and they have no financial background and they get going because they just kind of keep it simple, and it's like, don't make it complicated for yourself. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think simplicity, that's always the number one focus for me and my business partners. Just how do we keep things simple? And again, it's not just for our customers. It's not just for our employees. It's for ourselves too. As entrepreneurs, it's so difficult. We have so many things pulling at us from a business standpoint, but then even just, we have personal lives going on. We have all these other challenges that everybody faces. Every single one of us does. How do we keep things as simple as possible so that we know what is our one main focus? The more we simplify things, the more we are able to laser focus in on what actually matters, and we're able to execute on that. Yeah.
And that's thoroughly a big belief for us. Like, we built in a couple things into the Dryrun just this past year, so that again, it's like, you've got the pro, they're driving, but then you send this little, we call it insights card. It's like, send this to your clients, your management team that you're dealing with Monday morning or whatever. It's just a little snapshot of what's happening. And it's just simple. And send out what we call action lists. It's like, here's the 5 things you got to do this week. Not a big list of everything that who owes you this, not just deal with this. Give them simple, and they'll love you for it. Right. So we try and equip them to deliver simple.
Yeah. When one of our big philosophies when we send an email is just simple, short, sweet, to the point, easy to read, no paragraphs in the email, all one line. because
Yeah.
people appreciate simplicity.
Yeah.
People appreciate when you respect their time. Like we do Gen Z presentations because of our previous company. We had a lot of this amazing data that we would share with conferences and employers that want to know the future of work. And we would talk about how Gen Z has the attention span of a goldfish, 8 seconds.
Yeah.
Millennials, I think, were 12 seconds, and goes up a little bit from there. But the reason why I bring that up is because now in this new age with technology, we all have an attention span of a goldfish. Every single one of us, I don't care what generation you are, we all have such a short attention span. So I appreciate when you're direct. When I get a cold email, I don't care if they're trying to sell me, just be direct to the point. Don't try to be all like fluffy. Don't pretend like you know me and you're my best friend. You don't know me and I don't know you. I know you don't care about me and I don't care about you. I don't know you. You don't know me. Like it's no disrespect, but we have our own stuff going on. But the way you can show that you care about me is just being direct to the point and saying, hey, here's a problem we solve. Here's why I think it could help you. If you're interested, let's talk. And that's how I try to put people through cold email outreach that we care about you is, hey, here's a problem we solve. Here's how I think it could help you. If you're interested, let's talk. If you're not interested, I'll stop reaching out to you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I feel that myself. Cause when I go to, and you have the same inbox, I'm sure, as I do. There's just so much stuff in there all the time. And I click and I've just got it's that too long didn't read thing. It's just like, click. No, click.
No, it's not even going to read it.
Not even going to read it. But if it's a sentence, it's like, and it looks like it's from a legit source. If it's like a sentence or two, I guess I can't help it. It's like your mind absorbs it, even glancing at it. You're forced to read it almost, right?
Yeah, exactly. It makes it easy. Again, how do we make things as easy as possible for other people with everything that we do? So yeah, that's a big thing that I always try to do, and it's always the biggest challenge is to keep things simple. But it's something that I can continue to get better at. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's amazing what, like we were talking about even Slack and that before, like what Slack has done. I had this conversation with, and I don't know, you might think, cause you're in this industry, so you might think I'm way off base, but I was talking with an entrepreneur, probably maybe I'm on another podcast I'm on. And I said, you know what? Like Slack has saved email. And it's because all this stuff used to just clutter up and emails turned into more like mail. Like a lot of times you don't have to deal with it right now. But the conversations are over here and it's actually freed all of that from your inbox. So now your inbox is like, yeah, I'm getting some flyers here. Here's some stuff I got to respond to, but it made it workable again, where it was so cluttered for a while that it was almost like, yeah, that's going to explode. It's not going to work anymore.
That's actually a really fascinating point. I never thought about that specifically with Slack, where I actually think you're right. I do think Slack probably saved email in a lot of ways because yes, the pointless emails that we used to get, now it's just put in a Slack channel. I was actually having a conversation yesterday with another podcast, and they were talking about text messaging versus emailing. And they asked, well, do you think email is the future? Is text message the future when it comes to work? And one of the things that I talked about was in these Gen Z presentations, when we talk to Gen Zers, they would say how they don't want to get text messages from their bosses. They want text messages to be personal, email or Slack to be work related. So because that, 5-10 years ago, we would probably text message a lot more versus email. Text message work related because it was newer.
Yeah.
Now though, because everyone obviously is texting, we all text, we want to keep those two things separate. So texting is personal, Slack is business, easy, short communication. Email is stuff that you don't have to get back to right away, but still business related. So I agree with your point. I think that's a really fascinating one.
And it's interesting that it's kind of evolved that way without kind of any sort of conscious decision, because I agree, like very little comes in on text that's business related for me. It's personal. Slack, our channel is always going. Zoom is always going. Email is just, it's now useful. It's the stuff to deal with. And it's just sort of evolved that way kind of for everybody. And I think it's made a little, especially everyone working from home for so long, it's made it possible to handle that and keep everything in their buckets. Right.
Yeah. And it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere.
No, the entire work world has had a fundamental shift forward, a 10-year leap forward in the last 2 years. And it'll never be the same. And I think for the better, it won't stay, I don't think exactly like it is today, but these sort of hybrid and all that will be very common.
Well, I think about how many people now that never used Zoom or anything like Zoom 2, 3 years ago. Now our experts at Zoom know exactly how to set up a Zoom.
Yeah.
That alone is groundbreaking, because just a few years ago, people that never knew how to use Zoom, everything had to be in person.
Yeah.
You had to be in the office, either because that's where the meeting was, or you needed your IT person to help you set up your virtual conferencing.
Yeah.
Now we know how to set this up. So it does make it where work now expands. Now it allows for companies to leverage that as a tool to encourage people to work for them. And maybe
Yeah.
it's all virtual, maybe it's a mixture, maybe it's do whatever you want, maybe it's all full-time, whatever that company wants to do. But it's now a recruiting tool, because you can be virtual. And damn, a lot of these companies are saving a heck of a lot of money now, because they don't have to spend money on tons of breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. They don't have to keep the lights on. Maybe they can shut down a couple of floors in their office building. So it's saving these companies a lot of money. If you could be as effective virtually, it could be a huge asset for a company.
Yeah, and like we've been virtual for like my team has always been sort of spread out over Canada for years, and so it's all virtual. But I really, my co-founder and I were talking about that the other day. We still love to get together like in person, and there's a difference, and that we are starting to talk about the difference between like Zoom and in person. And what I found is when it's in a business sense, especially when it's like my co-founder or management team or anything like that, the difference with Zoom is it's basically to the minute. Like you have this 30 minute, 45, 1 hour or whatever, and you likely have a meeting right after it, or someone on the call does. So when you get in, it's like you stick to agenda when you're on Zoom. And when you're in person and you're sitting there over a beer or something like that, suddenly you don't have that deadline at the end. You don't have a place to go. And I find that the conversations kind of flow in between business and then sort of personal and business and personal. And by the time you leave, you've got some of that water cooler talk they talk about. You get all these other areas that you wouldn't touch on. So I really value in person. But it's just, it's like, you know, we've got addicted to this online where it's so quick, so fast, so responsive, and it can be anywhere, you know?
Yeah, it's more efficient. And again, there's pros and cons to everything. There's
Absolutely.
pro and a con. And yes, it's probably more efficient, more to the point, but are we losing these interpersonal relationships, mental health, even just leaving your place? You know, I remember my first year of our company, it was, we was working from home. And at the end of that year, the second we raised money, I was like, guys, we are finding the next office building we are just moving into it. And literally that day we raised money, I found an office building, we moved into WeWork, like literally that next day. I'm like, I can't work from home anymore. I need to be around people. So there is the pro and the con to it. And it's also just knowing who you are. And some people would rather be home, and maybe they have young kids, maybe they have pets, and they are really good at working from home, but not everybody is. Like I know people that don't get anything done working from home, where if they're on a meeting, they got their camera off and they're doing other stuff, or they're slacking off a little bit. But there's other people that are much more productive at home, and they save themselves 2 hours of a commute every day, and, you know, BSing at the water cooler and wasting time. And they just like to get their work done and move on with their life. So it really is just about self-awareness and knowing how you can get work done most effectively.
Yeah, and absolutely. And hiring for that, because we've got a remote team. That's like the number one sort of question when we're hiring, when you get past like the capabilities and all that kind of stuff, is it a person that is going to absolutely thrive in a remote environment, or will they struggle? Because you know, eventually we'll probably have a little bit of bricks and mortar here and there, but it'll still be kind of this hybrid thing, which means we have to hire people that really thrive on it. And it's so far so good. We've been really fortunate to find those people that are really thrive on it.
How do you test for that? I feel like that's a tough thing to test for ahead of time though.
It's you know, as we go through our interviewing process, which is fairly exhaustive, so that's not one interview, it's usually with numerous people and they're covering different things, and we're trying to get to sort of that background and how they're wired and why they like to work remote, and sort of that we talk a lot about our culture and our mission and how engaged they are with that. But you know, it was interesting, and I don't know if it is a lot to do with this or a lot, but at one point I looked back and realized, you know, most of the people that at one time, I think the vast majority of people that were on our team, aside from me, actually had a fairly high level martial arts background.
Interesting.
And we just noticed that one day, and I'm like, well, that's kind of interesting. And then we started to think about it, and we said, yeah, and even these other ones, they've done a sport or they've done something, but it's a bit more at an elite level. And I think what we started to realize is maybe there's something there where, and maybe I'm just reading into it, but maybe there's something there where it really proves this sort of discipline and self-motivation. It's not even team sports, it's individual sports, and not at a just for fun level, more of an elite level. And it was something that we looked at, that we saw afterwards. And now we actually actively look for some of that, because it's an indication that there's this real self, like that, the drive, that get up and go, and that discipline that really helps in a remote workforce.
Yeah, I think that's the key word, is discipline.
Yeah.
Discipline with anything, but when working remotely, you have to be disciplined, because, and that's one of the challenges with being an entrepreneur, is if you're not a self-starter, if you need somebody that's watching over you and making sure you're getting the work done, you're probably not supposed to be an entrepreneur. Because to be an entrepreneur, there's no one saying, hey, Adam, you got to work today.
No,
hey, Adam,
it's
get this done. You just don't have that.
It's like you mentioned, it's that discipline self-starter. That's the other term. We're always looking for that self-starter, that people that just have this ridiculous high level of taking responsibility for things. And it's funny, like I've shared the story before. We had something go, and it wasn't even a big thing. I can't for the life of me remember what it was. I just remember it was one morning we came in and something had gone wrong. It was a customer or with something. And it was one of those things that, well, it just kind of shit happens. It wasn't even anyone's fault, really, is what I looked at. But what I saw is the entire team, it's like everyone was trying to take responsibility for, well, it's my fault. And I'm like, you aren't even involved, but it's like everybody was trying to step and like take the bullet for it. And I actually had to kind of pull everyone back. Look, guys, sometimes something just goes wrong. It's okay. Like, this was not a big deal. It's no one's fault. But it was interesting to see that it was like everyone pushing everybody else out of the way to take the bullet. And they're like, that's what we've hired. We've hired those people. So it's also a good learning to know, if you hire that driven everything, you maybe don't have some of the mix that can calm some of that down. So you have to build some of those processes in to deal with that sort of driven team, right?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because it's a lot of times it's the opposite, right? Where it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault. It's not my fault. And if you can I just think that's the greatest. I feel like it's such a freeing feeling when you can take responsibility. Because if you just take the responsibility, then it says, you know what? I'm not going to point the finger at anyone else. I'm not going to control what you think, control what your actions are. I can only control my thoughts and my actions. And it was on me, and I need to be better, and I need to be better, and I need to be better. So that's an amazing thing that's built into your culture, that you have a bunch of people that believe in personal responsibility. Yeah.
And it is such and people talk about that all the time, of the culture, how important culture is, and how important that vision and mission is. And it's true. Like, I used to hear those things, and you're like, yeah, okay. And then after some time, you start to, you know it, like you learn it, and you say, no, that is critical, because that's how people get engaged, and they have that drive. Right. So, I think we've been on for a while here, so we're probably going up on time. Tell me a bit about like what you guys are offering right now, and how people can get hold of you, and how, here's your chance to, because I want to learn more about what you're doing too, right? It sounds really cool.
Yeah. Biggest thing is, the number one problem that a lot of a lot of startups that I see have, is they don't get enough sales, and they don't get enough sales because they don't get enough sales appointments. And the main reason why is because people say, cold email doesn't work. And they're right. Cold email does not work if you don't know what you're doing. But if you do know what you're doing, it can be a very effective tool to get you in front of potential buyers. So for us, very simply, is we work with startups, and now we have some larger companies that want to work with us as well, where we simply email on their behalf. We book sales appointments, we put on their calendar, so they don't have to deal with any of the minutia of finding contacts to reach out to, writing a really well-crafted email, following up with them 8 times, making sure that the meeting gets booked, dealing with all the rejection that they're going to get, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So all that BS that no one should really have to deal with, we take care of, and we just put sales appointments on their calendar, and hopefully they can close those sales appointments.
Yeah. And it's a incredibly invaluable service, because that's what we're talking about all the time. Is we know even where we're at now, it's kind of a numbers game, right? And our director of development, he's like, that's all he works on, is building that system and the processes to get meetings booked. Because we know once they're in the funnel, we close a really good number of them at a really good price. So absolutely critical. And especially for startups that are trying to find their way, this is not only how you get sales, but this is how you talk with clients and get feedback. So it's absolutely critical.
Yeah, I always talk about email market fit. Is just how do you figure out who your real buyers are, what problem they're looking to have solved, and how do you position your messaging so that you have what's called a Trojan horse to get you through the door? What's that interesting hook that you have to make them want to talk with you? And for us with our tech startup, that's, again, we did not have great product market fit. We never got to product market fit, frankly, but we were always ahead of where the industry was going. Like we had a lot of these companies that were millions and millions and millions of dollars more well-funded than us, that frankly were following our lead with a lot of the stuff that we were talking about and doing. And the only reason why, it's not that we were brilliant or smart. I am certainly far from that. The reason why is because we were constantly talking to these buyers and having these conversations, because we were just constantly emailing and getting on phone calls with them. So we were always ahead of the trends because of that. So yes, it's great because you can hopefully get new sales, but talking to your buyers is the best way to get clarity on what your offering is and how to position yourselves.
And one of the biggest things with outreach like that and booking meetings is now you can book these meetings. People are willing to meet with you pretty much from anywhere in the world. And you're not, for a lot of businesses, you're not focused on just your neighborhood anymore. You literally can reach out to the rest of the world. And so how do people find you? I'm sure there's going to be ones that again want to follow up with you. How do they find you?
So a couple of ways. Number one, if you want to follow on social media, pretty much the only site I'm active on is Instagram. And you can find me at Adam I Rosen, Rosen. You can check out our website, eocworks.com, or you can email me at adam@eocworks.com.
Yeah, thanks so much, Adam. This was a terrific conversation. I know we could probably go for another hour here, but I guess we got to end here and get on with the rest of the day. So great conversation. I really enjoyed having you on the show. And thanks everyone for joining us. Again, I'm Blaine Birch, co-founder and CEO at Dryrun. If you're looking for some help with your finances, financial modeling, cash management, if you're a CFO, you're a CPA, please come talk with us. We're going to help you, help your clients, help your management teams understand where they're going, keep you efficient, and make better decisions in your business. Thanks so much.